Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today is time to film a review that I had already filmed, but apparently half of my review got like deleted or something. I don't know. I can't find it anymore anyway. So let's do this again and let's talk about the last in the Kushiel's legacy trilogies, which is the Naamah trilogy, starting with Naamah's Kiss. Second book is Naamah's Curse, third book is Naamah's Blessing, and all of these are by Jacqueline Carey. Over the past like 1.5-ish years, I have actually almost 2, because I think I started the first trilogy, Feeder's trilogy, a bit early. But over the last like 1.5, 2-ish years, I've been reading all of the books in the Kushiel's legacy series. I reread the Feeder trilogy because I had already read that the first time when I was 18, so 10 years ago now. And yeah, I am now done, almost. I still need to read Kushiel's Servant, and it feels weird, and it feels sad, and I just love Jacqueline Carey as an author so much. Genuinely, I think she is one of the best fantasy authors out there. She is so criminally underrated in how she writes, and I do want to make an entire video just on her, like, I don't know, characters, the way she plays with tropes, everything around that. But that is not this video. This video we will talk about the Naamah trilogy. And first, let's start with, do you need to read the other 2 trilogies first before you get to this one, if this one sounds more interesting than the other 2? I, by the way, do have full series reviews for the other 2 series as well, whatever. And personally, I think you can read this trilogy on its own. Obviously, you can read Feeder's trilogy on its own. However, Imri's trilogy, I do think that you absolutely have to read Feeder's trilogy first, because it deals with a lot of the stuff, like the fallout from stuff that was left over after the first series, just with focusing on a different character. However, this one is set, I think, 3 or 4 generations after that first one. And while there are callbacks to stuff that happens, especially when it comes to the people that our main character comes from, I do think that you can get the gist very, very quickly that something happened, and you don't really need to know any more than something happened. It's not necessary to know what exactly happened. And so I do think that it is possible to read this on its own. However, I'm not sure how much is explained in this one anymore, actually. I didn't pay close attention to that in terms of how society works and the religion, etc. But what is this series about? This series follows Moiren, who is of the people of Alba, of the Maguin Dawn. And the Maguin Dawn have kind of become almost outlawed a few generations back, so they do live generally in hiding now. And so Moiren grows up with her mother just living in the woods. However, she does not know her father, and once she grows up, she learns that her father was actually not from the Maguin Dawn, but was one of the people of Trilogy. He was in fact a priest of Naamah, of the goddess of sexuality and love. And when Moiren goes through the kind of initiation ceremony of her people, the bear goddess of her people directly tells her that her destiny right now is not on the island of Alba, but that she needs to follow her destiny to the country of Trilogy, to the city of Elua. And so she does that, and she kind of now is amongst the people of her father, and she kind of makes some good and some bad experiences there. And the entire series is just basically her traveling to different places and meeting a lot of different people, always following her destiny. And so that's one of the main things that is very, very different in this series compared to the other 2. In the first 2 series, we mainly spent time in Trilogy, and mostly spend time, like 99% of the time, spend time in what is the fantasy Europe of this world. And when I say fantasy Europe, it literally is fantasy Europe. Like, I don't know if you can see this, but the map of the world is basically a map of our world, except there's other country names. And that is where I want to start my review, actually, because especially with awareness now in terms of depiction of cultures that aren't Western and othering other cultures, it's one of the main things where I think Jacqueline Carey's weak spots sometimes lie, because she does every now and again fall into like Orientalistic or othering stereotypes when she describes those different cultures. However, in terms of the interactions of the main character with those different cultures, I think that's where Jacqueline Carey, I wouldn't say shines, but does really well. Because, well, there is sometimes aspects to it where it can become slightly uncomfortable reading. Overall, Moiren, when she engages with the different cultures, does so on an eye level. It does not feel very Western colonialist the way she enacts with the different people. Partially that is also due to the fact that Moiren herself comes from a people that within the context of this world was othered a lot and also was colonized slightly. And so she takes those experiences with her and to those other cultures. It's also a really interesting thing because in the other series there was like this feeling of superiority that a lot of people of Terre d'Ange and Angelines, how they're called, have, which was commented on a bit already in the Imri trilogy. However, this series is the series where it's really called out. And so while I don't think that in this regard that Jacqueline Carey is perfect and that there's like no Orientalism whatsoever in this series, I personally, like, it's not to the point where it bothers me generally, but it's more at a level where it's just very interesting for me to analyze. Also something, while these books aren't like old by any means, they are like 15 years old already, so I think they were written between like 2008 and 2010 or 2011. So it's been a while since these books come out. However, just be aware that there are some scenes that might make you wince. And also, like, there's this thing where within fiction, obviously we cannot talk about these series in a vacuum, but also have to talk about it, you know, as seen in the context of history of the genre, but also of broader media or art or politics, etc. And you do in each of these books, you have Moiren going to a different continent, going to a different country and helping those people solve a problem usually. It's not like, I could talk just about that for 20 minutes. In my personal opinion, it's not like a white savior narrative, because Moiren never comes in with, like, as I said, superiority and I know better as a white person and can help you solve those problems. She does sometimes play a key component, but that's also something actually that I want to talk about in the in the character video type thing. Moiren is, aside from the first book, I think never actually the person who ends up doing the thing that helps solve the problem, or the ultimate thing that helps solve the problem. So yeah, but that's like my main negative-ish gripe with this. Aside from that, yeah, I love Moiren as a character. I don't know, I think Moiren might even be my favorite of the three main characters. I find her so interesting, and I love how she's kind of a parallel to Phaedra from the first trilogy. They both have these kind of characteristics and this like thing about them that makes other people around them react very positively to them. Like, they have this serenity in them where other people react very positively. which I find really interesting how well that's done. And I think the thing that I find also very interesting about Moiren, which I could also film an entire video about, is that Moiren is not the traditional main character. Like, if you talk about a character who goes through the hero's journey in the course of the story, it's really her love interest. Moiren herself is not that different at the end of the story than at the beginning of the story. Like, if you want to read one of Jacqueline Carey's stories where the character goes through major changes, it's Imri's Trilogy. Imri is the one who very much has the very traditional thing, the very traditional path. Moiren follows her destiny, however she still isn't a passive character. Like, she actively chooses to follow her destiny, and there's multiple points in the story where that leads to conflicting feelings, where that leads to hurt feelings. But she follows her destiny, and she follows it wherever it may lead her, and it's just, I love it. It's very interesting. She's also like, she is one of those characters, female characters, who can fight. She can, well, she's not that good in hand-to-hand combat. However, she's an amazing, like, bow shooter. I forgot what it's called. Archer. That's what it is. She's an amazing archer. But still, her journey isn't one where she regularly has to fight. The thing that I also love about Moiren is that she, out of all the characters, is probably the most unapologetically queer character out of all of Carey's books. I mean, Phaedra already was queer, Imri was also queer, although with the caveat of having trauma around being with men, so that's not really something that generally happens in the book. Phaedra was with women, and Phaedra has the whole thing where her main antagonist, she has a very homoerotic relationship with her. Moiren, however, is the one who gets to live her sexuality the most, which is funny to say because Phaedra is literally a courtesan. Moiren is very interesting. She just, like, she falls in love incredibly easily. And it's not played as a joke, but it's played as something very sacred, almost. Which also has to do with the whole thing about, you know, taking sensuality in these books and, like, making it what violence usually is in these types of stories. So Moiren falls in love very easily. She has sex with a lot of people, and she also has sex with a lot of women, and she falls in love with a bunch of women. And literally I was so surprised because, like, she has romance in the first book, and I thought I wouldn't get past it. I was like, no way am I gonna support any future love interest of Moiren's. However, the guy that she ends up with, I still, like, I love him so much. I won't say who it is because it does, well, it happens in the first book, but it happens quite late in the first book. I still love him, but I still love, like, her first female love interest at the beginning of the story and the relationship that she had with her. And I adore it. And I also love it how, like, Jacqueline Carey writes sexuality and sensuality very consciously and just so incredibly without judgment. There's, like, multiple points in the story where Moiren could decide to further her goals or to, you know, get to where she needs to be faster or better or whatever, to sleep with different people. And every single time she goes into the situation, she considers it and she's like, do I want to do this? Do I need to do this? Like, what is my decision gonna be? And every single time, whether the decision is yes or no, it's like without judgment whatsoever. Then also, like, I love Jacqueline Carey's writing. Jacqueline Carey is one of the few people where I just love first-person narration from the different characters because you get insight so much. And I love how she wrote 3 different characters in those 3 trilogies, and every single time their voice is completely different. It's just, it's so good and so amazing and so adorable, and I don't know why I said adorable. Adorable is not really the right word. I really appreciate the character work, the centrality of the stories, and also with all the caveats of the negative stuff that I said earlier, I love reading how Moirin engages with different people and with different cultures. And there's so many times where she's confronted with things in different cultures that maybe she doesn't agree with. And I think that Carrie finds the line between having Moirin be a character who is true to herself and who's like, no, I don't agree with this, but who also doesn't condemn other cultures outright completely for those things. She has discussions with a lot of people, but those discussions are usually, as I said, had on eye level. And there are a few times where every now and again, like those other leaders of other countries come out of those conversations being like, maybe we could change things. But usually those things are concerning habits, cultural habits that in modern day, I would say we see as almost universally negative. Even people coming from those cultures. Is it the greatest? No, but it also makes a lot of sense for Moirin as a character. And so, yeah, I think I will leave it here because I have already rambled on for almost 20 minutes, at least in the raw video. But yeah, tell me, have you started with the Kushiel's Legacy universe already? Is that something that you're interested in? Is it something, if you've maybe read the first trilogy or the first two, have I convinced you to continue on with the last one? If you have read the series, do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? And with all of that said, if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club are linked down below, so go and check those out. And I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!